what I'd like to talk about today is Elizabeth Loftus, and I think it was Palmer who did this experiment with her, about false memory. This is pretty interesting. I like this one a lot. Loftus showed college students a bunch of photographs, and I don't remember what all the photographs were, but they were not really connected. One of the photographs showed a car that had been in an accident, and like in the old days, all the headlights were made out of glass. The headlights were broken, that the windscreen was broken. But let's say out of 20 photographs, this is the only one of a car accident. They then talk about other things and eventually come back to, do you remember the photograph of the car accident? And they would say, yes, I do remember. And then they asked the participant how much glass was on the ground, how much broken glass was on the ground. Now this is important because it's kind of a leading question. Instead of asking, what do you know? What do you remember about that photograph? Where they might say, well, it was a car crash and I don't remember anything in specific. But they asked how much glass was on the ground. Well, the implication then is there was glass on the ground. In fact, in that particular photograph, there was no glass on the ground. The headlights and the windscreen were cracked, but they were not shattered. So the idea is you can invoke a faulty memory by the kind of question that you ask. There's something that I call a family story, which it's not really a qualified psychological concept, but think about this. You, in childhood, you had a real experience, and it doesn't have to be traumatic. Maybe it's a birthday party, maybe it's a camping trip, maybe it's, I don't know, a special occasion of some kind. You have little bits of memory that you do remember that really are your original memory. But if an adult asks you, what do you remember about that? You might say cake or food or, some very small detail. But now, as you get older, you've had parents or grandparents perhaps or other relatives who told you, they recounted stories verbally about that event. Then you saw photographs or movies or video of that event. Well, now what happens? You saw that photograph, you saw that video, you heard the story. Now you integrate that into your head, and now what happens? Now you have a fully fleshed out, vivid memory of something that really happened. Is that your memory? No. Right? You get what I'm saying? Is that you don't remember it the way it really happened at that time. But you have constructed a memory now that is so real to you that if I told you, there's no way you could remember that because you were 3, or there's no way that you could remember that because, I don't know, you were mad at the time, or you were angry, I don't know, for whatever reason. But you'll fight with that person. You will demand, oh no, I remember everything, but the truth is you don't. The other experiment was Loftus came in with, there was a bunch of college volunteers, and I don't even remember what the questions she was asking, but one of the things she mentioned to the college students is, hey, we have your contact information, and I've been talking to your mom and dad, and they said that when you were really young, you got so out of control that they had to call the police. Now, this is a false, completely false statement on the experimenter's part, and the very first thing that the participant says is, no, that's not true. How could you even say that? And I don't remember how many times they had meetings with these participants, but let's say off the cuff, we'll say 10 times. So maybe it's once a week for 10 weeks, let's say, hypothetically, because I don't remember the specific. Each time that the experimenter says the same thing, do you remember anything about that time when your parents had to call the police? And that little grain of doubt, did that really happen? I mean, they were talking to my mom and dad, which I don't think they ever were. They were talking to mom and mom and dad said this, and by the end of the last meeting that they would have with these students, the students would actually have a fully fleshed out story about the time when the police had to come, even though that never ever happened. So why does this happen? I think it comes to a little seed of doubt that you have in your mind. Did that really happen? Is that possible? And what I want to point out with this is, to me, which is the most important part, is you can ask a question in such a way that you will get, in a very short period of time, the answer that you are looking for. Or you can design a question that's asked in such a way, or worded in such a way, that people won't have to wait for 10 repetitions, that they will give you the answer that the questioner wants very quickly, or at least consistently, across a population.